Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are really glad you joined us today. We haven't had a coffee with the BPC in a little while. So here we are again, and we are recording this session. We had people that couldn't make it and asked if they could receive a copy of the recording after. So just know that we are recording, and just a little housekeeping. Everyone should be on mute, but we want participation, input, sharing, etc. And so if you want to raise your hand, or if you just want to unmute and hop in and ask a question or use the chat, I know we'll be keeping an eye on the chat as well to answer questions that come up throughout this coffee with the PPC. So I have to show my mug. I have Napa Valley, but there's tea. There's no wine in here. Today. Just kidding. Anyways, a little bit of hot tea going on. Gina, what are you sipping on today?
I have hot tea as well.
All right, partners in crime.
There you go.
Good deal. All right, so we can just go ahead and do introductions really quick. Gina?
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. So I'm Gina Buser, CEO and founder of Traveling Coaches, and I am excited to be here today and talk to you about ILTACON. It's one of my very favorite topics. I know some people think I'm crazy, but I love it. It's one of my favorite weeks, and so we have a lot in store for you. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. And I am Amy Jewers. I am the CEO of Edge Marketing, and I have been involved with ILTA for many years as well. I'm very excited about today. And we do have some other guests that are on with us that I should probably introduce or talk about a tiny bit. We have Dawn Hudgens with ILTA, obviously, and Tyler is here kind of near line. There's other business partner committee members. We have Phil. I don't know if Scott hopped on, and I'm just looking down the line. We have Corey Simpson with ILTA, and Dean from iManage is here. He's on the BPC. And Kara, she's also our board liaison on the BPC. And so we have a full house. Did I miss anybody? I mean, help me out here. I'm multitasking. So, all right. Well, if you're here, hello, and thank you we have a lot of really good input, and we're going to be asking some of them to chime in throughout the presentation today too. So we're very happy that they're all here as well. And again, we invite you all to ask questions throughout. We'll keep an eye on the chat and keep this rolling. So next slide. Okay, so first we're going to talk about what we kind of did too, was we broke this down into 3 different segments. We're going to talk about things that you need to do before ILTACON, things that you can consider doing during ILTACON, and then things after ILTACON. And so just to kind of give you a gist of the format of today's presentation. And so getting into prepping beforehand. And so before you start anything, you should come up with a strategic plan. And the strategic plan is something that has, your mission, your vision, your goals that you specifically want to achieve with the conference. And this is kind of a standard operating procedure for and CEOs of companies. If you're going to be making this kind of investment in this, big event that attracts most of your potential clients, you really should have a strategic plan and, determine what your key performance indicators are going to be. Things like you want to achieve X number of qualified leads or X number of meetings, appointments, demos, maybe get a certain number of people to a special event or a dinner or breakfast, things of that nature. And so make sure that you have some indicators or some, quantitative goals for you and your team as you're creating your strategic plan. And obviously budget is a factor too, and creating a task list and assigning those out and a schedule, et cetera. And so it is almost nearly impossible for one person to achieve this. So we highly encourage you to form a team and, have regular meetings and have them help you implement your strategic plan. Another important part, I think that's going to be a little bit of talk of the town is just to establish key safety and wellness focus for your team. And we'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later. So, and then obviously, make it fun, right? BILTA is definitely a fun week to be had. There's always something going on, and and think about the audience too, and what they would like to see and hear from you as part of your plan. Okay, so we have pre-show marketing and PR ideas. I'm gonna put my slide here. So Gina, you want to take this slide?
Absolutely. So we're going to cover some of the items that are on this slide, and yet we also want you to provide your best practices and ideas. Part of the magic of the ILTA community is how we share information. So know that we're going to cover a couple, but you may have others to add. So please do that. The first thing that I would point out here is around speaking opportunities. Now, if you haven't already applied to be a speaker and you aren't already in that cadence, if you will, you've missed the boat for this year. But if you have thought leaders in your organization and you want to speak at ILTACON, make that a target and a goal for next year. If you are speaking or your thought leaders are speaking at ILTACON this year, really promote those sessions, right? Include those in the social, include them in all your communications, really do everything that you can to drive attendance to those sessions. The other thing that I would say is make sure that as part of your strategic plan that Amy mentioned, that you have an outreach plan to reach out to attendees, both members and business partners. And I know we have some other content later on in this session talking about that, but you really want to be very, very intentional about that, about your communication. You also really want to think about the Monday night event. You know that is a really popular time. And if you are not already planning with your team and what you are going to do to execute on Monday night, I would highly encourage you to get a meeting scheduled right away. The theme this year is an intriguing one, and one really where you can take it several different directions. It's called A Tale of Tennessee. And I love that because there's so many different directions that you can take with it and really come up with something unique and that really fits your organization. So really think about that. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is involve your entire team that is going to be participating in ILTACON in the planning. Not only will you get some help with the hundreds and hundreds of tasks that go along with ILTACON planning, but you'll get more buy-in from day one, right? People support what they help create. So if they're part of the planning, they're going to have a lot more buy-in. They're also going to be in the know. One of the biggest challenges for ILTA staff is business partners that show up and their representative do not know what's going on. They don't know what furniture was ordered. They don't even know if furniture was ordered. They don't know the schedule. They don't know the sessions. They don't know what they're supposed to do. So the more that you involve them in the planning, the better experience they're going to have. And I would even challenge you to say that your outcomes are going to be better if you are really involving them in that. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is really spend some time going through the ILTACON schedule and think about how you can leverage the open time. So like Tuesday night, those types of things, those are open evenings where you can plan drinks or dinner or whatever with customers or other business partners, that type of thing, but really take advantage of those times and be intentional and be proactive. I think those are two key words with ILTACON planning when we think about pre-conference, is really being very intentional and proactive. Let me stop there and ask, what questions do you have? What other ideas do you guys have that you would throw out there?
So Don, you can probably speak to this. We're using the click technology again for lead capture, and that's something that people have to prepare for in advance. And if so, what would they need for that?
Well, there's a lot of things that they'll need, and we'll talk about this a little bit on in the presentation. We even have an orientation and a reception where we'll go through that entire piece. And I'll reiterate this in a moment when we talk about registration. It's kind of important, especially as we get more technology driven, to register your people earlier and not on site, because it takes time once they are registered to put everything up into the app for them to be able to get lead retrievals. And if they don't have an ILTA profile already, it could take them 10, 15, 20 minutes to get registered. You multiply that times a couple hundred people and you might miss out on some place that you need to be. So proper prior planning can really prohibit some issues as you're going along. So that is one big thing. And Amy, those two things go hand in hand, that prior registration and that click app. We demonstrated it again at Evolve. It worked wonderfully at Evolve. But a lot of it has to do with making sure that information gets into the app so that you can be on your way and able to be successful right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I remember there was a little bit of, I want to say, confusion last year about the click and the fee. So what are we doing this year in that regard?
As a fee, there's not a real
Yeah.
fee. We are asking people assist us in returning them. There will be baskets that have the ILTA logo and little signs all across property for you to be able to drop the little button, not your whole badge, but the little button when you're leaving. And that will keep us from incurring $5 per button when we go to return those back to the organization where we get them from.
Good to know. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Amy, a couple of things that I've seen in the chat that I think is definitely worthy of mentioning. One, Dawn mentioned that is one of my favorites, and that is support your customers and your potential customers that are speaking, right? There's nothing better than to get up on the stage to present and see a lot of familiar faces and smiles, right? So that's a great opportunity for you to have another impression with your customers and also your prospects. So definitely do that, build that into the schedule, and just reinforce the importance of that with your team. Okay. Those that are boots on the ground. The other thing that I want to draw attention to that some of business partners that are on the call today may not be aware of or may not remember, and that is you and your team that are boots on the ground at ILTACON can volunteer, and we welcome that. Absolutely welcome that. And I know Dawn and her team will share more about volunteer opportunities as it gets closer, but that's a fantastic way, build relationships, be shoulder to shoulder with members and other business partners, just building relationships and getting to know each other. So highly recommend that you consider volunteering. I know it's a really busy time for us, but yet I think it's worthy of considering setting aside some time in doing that. So love that idea as well.
So there's another question about from Ab. Hey, Ab, he's part of the BPC Communications Committee. What exactly does A Tale of Tennessee mean? So maybe what are some ideas that we could throw out there or explain that a little bit better?
Yeah, so let me just take that one. So Tennessee has a tremendous amount of history, and it's all over the place. It's not normally what you just think of with country music and, well, generally country music and whiskey. I think that's what most people think of. But there's a lot of things involved with Tennessee. There's a lot of great writers. There's a lot of great sports that come out of Tennessee, and a lot of interesting things throughout history. So just get to know the state a little bit. Choose something that resonates with you. Embrace it. Dress up as such. Create an activity within your booth that kind of goes along with what that might be, and it helps educate the members and the people who kind of walk through the exhibit hall on Monday night, and it's an opportunity for a really good time. And Ab, I would say not being from here, you will probably find more cool things than those people who are from here. I'm not sure why it works out that way, but it does work out that way. So I look forward to seeing it.
Tuesday, okay, so Chandler's asking, what do the Tuesday and Wednesday nights open look like?
Sure. So it's an open time where we don't have anything from ILTA on the schedule at ILTACON. However, there are a lot of business partners who have receptions or meetups. There could be some affinity group meetups. So take a look at the schedule. If it is something that is open to everyone and we have been supplied the information, we will actually put it in the app. So you can take a look at some things that you want to do. So when we say that it's open, it just means that ILTA does not have any ILTACON programming going on during that time, but there are a tremendous amount of things that are going on Tuesday night and Wednesday night if you want to get out and do some things.
Perfect. And I guess what I want to add one more thing for this slide, unless if there's more questions, is that ILTA does a fantastic job of providing marketing assets through their website for ILTACON and just ILTA in general. And so be sure to go and look and use those assets as much as you want or need to. And also that the official hashtag is ILTACON 2024. So let's help them be consistent in using that hashtag. Anything else?
Sammy, I noticed someone was asking about sharing the link, and I just wanted to say we will let everyone who is registered for the event know about how to access the link to the event closer to the event. It is way too early now because things are still changing, and that would just mean we would have to keep updating it along the way. So it'll be a couple of weeks before the event starts, and you will get an email on how to access that and start your planning.
All right. Any of our other business partner committee members that are on this call want to add anything else? Any other thoughts or ideas? Or should we move to the next slide? We're totally ready for you if you want.
Okay. So I'm going to take this last bullet and use it as my sort of railway to the next slide, which is, guess what? All the deadlines. What I love about this particular call to action is tracking and beating all the deadlines. It is sort of fast and furious, and it's essentially the way you have to mindset in order to accomplish this. And so Dawn, you and I have this particular slide, and there's a couple things I want to call out, and then I was hoping that you can just share with our audience you know, anything that needs special attention or the like. But the first thing that I want to call out is at the bottom of the slide. These are links that are so critical to your insight, information, reference, especially what you share with the rest of your team. The ILTACON business portal, the updated checklist for sponsor success. It basically takes you from like January to July or all the way through. So it's really a great reminder. The other thing is that there have been a number of prep webinars that have already been held by ILTA, and the recordings are at that additional link. You're going to find special ones for you as exhibitors and sponsors, but you have to scroll down. And then there is a very rich set of frequently asked questions. So particularly, I'm thinking of maybe folks who are first timers on your team. Maybe you as a veteran need to have reminders, you know, recognize maybe some of the new processes and procedures and things like that, new things, new offerings that you might not know about. It is worth a scan through. But to me, these are like the top 4 things that are going to help you really, really attain success. And then, so Dawn, now, have all of the people on this call beat the June 28th deadline for COIs? And oh, by the way, what are COIs, Dawn?
That has to do with insurance. They're certificates of insurance. And that is something we are required to have. So if you don't have it yet, or if you're getting close to having it, please check in with your ILTA BP rep to make sure that they kind of know where you are in that process if you have not turned those in yet.
Okay, and then the next one, and I think this one is probably going to be, again, you have to be mindful now, given the 4th of July holiday and how that kind of takes a big chunk of time away. But July 10th and July 11th, you want to let us know what those two are about?
Yeah, so July 10th is pretty important if you want to do some clings or some type of banner graphics. That's our deadline to make sure that those can be produced in time. So take a look at that. This one is extremely important, and that is housing. So you guys need to know that the amount of people that attend ILTACON will not fit completely inside of the Gaylord Opryland, which means as we get closer to that July 11th date, housing will have to be found elsewhere. I know from personal experience that the additional hotels that are right around the property might not be a place that you would prefer to stay. I personally would not. So you would have to drive a lot further to get in, or take a lot further Uber if you're off site there. So do take a look at that. Make sure you get your housing in time for that date. And if you want me to continue on, Sherry, if we're going to talk about the GES discount deadline.
But wait,
that's
can we ask,
one.
there's one question in the chat real quick while
Yeah.
we're talking about housing is, can the housing dates be modified? And then I want to tack on one more question. Are they transferable?
The housing is transferable. The dates can only be modified if dates are available. So when we do a property, you have to look at all of those rooms like a giant puzzle. We have so many nights on Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. And as they become available or not available, we really do try to shore those up to make sure that everything fits as tightly as possible. So if there is something that's available for a modified date, that change can be made. But we can't guarantee that, because that has to do with whether or not we're full on that night or not. If you were to call the Gaylord Opryland without going through our process, they're going to tell you that the hotel is full. That's because we have all the rooms. So you do have to register for the room through our block. So do try to take a look at that, and I encourage people to stay through Thursday night, because you do want to go to our Denim and Diamonds social. I can say from personal experience that our members are different people on Friday night than they are on Sunday and Monday night, and they are far more relaxed. And it's a great opportunity to start building relationships. So if you're questioning whether or not you should stay through Thursday night, I highly recommend it. It's a great business move. So please take a look at that. Yes, don't miss Thursday night. Kara might be sporting some red sequin boots. That's a rumor I just started. I don't know.
I thought they were pink, actually, but you know, you
I
never
think
know.
you've issued a challenge, Dawn.
I like it. I like it. Another one I do want to talk about is the registration closing online as being July 25th. I really want to set some expectations here. So do try to register your people by July 25th. If you wait till it's on site, I want to prepare you for what will happen. You, as well as everyone else who has waited to be on site to register, will wait in a very long line. If you have not set up an ILTA profile, that takes about 10 to 15 minutes before you can actually register for the event. So you could be waiting about half an hour before you're fully registered because of all the things that need to take place. And then it'll take a half an hour after that before everything ends up in the app. So if you are rushing to make that Monday night opening exhibit hall session, you will not have lead retrieval available to you until after a half an hour after you have fully registered. So if you take a look at your teams and you haven't done this for your entire team, I want you to think about how long that's going to take to get everybody ready to go downstairs. So please plan ahead. If you don't plan ahead, just know you're going to be waiting. So be patient. We're trying to make the waiting process at least somewhat enjoyable. But it does take time. And some of that time comes from making sure that we're secure. We are very, we take safety and security very important. It's a top priority for us at all of our events, but especially ILTACON. And so that is one thing that you do have to read through and you do have to sign so that you understand what happens if you do not behave within certain parameters set by the event. Oh, and I have one more, Sherry.
Go ahead.
August 7th, and this date isn't listed here, but August 7th is a very important date. That is the date you need to have your materials that you are shipping to your booth or your demo room to GES. And make sure that you do not send things for your demo room to your exhibit space, because you get access to your exhibit space after your demo room. Just be careful that you make sure that those are properly tagged and labeled, and that you do make sure that your arrival date for those items for GES are August 7th. If you're shipping to the hotel, that's between you and FedEx. But if you are working with GES, they need to arrive there by August 7th.
Excellent, Dawn. Thank you. Tyler, I know you also had something about, was it the attendee list or something? You really have that coming up as well. And I know that's not a deadline, it's more a key date. The registration list or something. I'm sorry if I'm, Amy, this we were talking about before the session started.
Yes, the first registration list would be coming out on July 12th. The next list will be August 2nd. And then generally within 5 to 7 business days after the event, you'll get the final registration list.
Cool. That is very good to know. And again, a key date for everyone. Okay, well, with that, Amy, I think I can pass this back. Oh, no, actually, sorry, Tyler and I. This is the, one of the things that's happened is that Tyler and his team and all of you have been so on top of, working through all the sponsorships and all the opportunities and add-on branding opportunities. But Tyler shared with us that these are a number of the really key popular ones that are still open and still available. So if you want to check through this list and maybe choose to sponsor one of these and or have questions about anything else that's open, that is the email address for you to do that. Again, really good heads up because things are going fast, and there you go. Those are the opportunities that are still open. So now, I believe, Amy, this is your slide.
Thank you. Okay, so what we wanted to express to you all, and by the way, you will be getting a guidelines to success document after this webinar that was put together by a team of ILTA and business partner committee members. And what we wanted to express to you all is we talked about you all receiving the registration list, but what you might notice is that the members have the option to opt in or opt out of receiving communications or being on that list. And kind of what has been a newish sort of trend is that less members are opting in for communications. And so what we're trying to do here is just to give some thoughts and advice or things for you to think about to help strategize better and to also help in the efforts to maybe get more members to not opt out of receiving pre-conference communications from you all, which, we know that it's important to you to get their time or try and get their time during the conference or their attention and maybe see a demo, et cetera. And so I'm just going to kind of go through these. And then I know Dean from iManage is on this call, and iManage obviously is a top sponsor. It has been for many years for ILTA and ILTACON, and maybe he can provide some advice along these lines as well. So just be really mindful of the frequency of your communications and respect people's time. A frequent complaint, and the reason why they opt out is because they're receiving phone calls, they're receiving emails, meeting invites, whatever. It's kind of like a full court press, and they have full-time jobs. And so we just really are asking to be respectful of their time, and also, think about who you are sending your message to. And in that pre-reg list, there will be titles of the people in there. And so if your product or service is not applicable to an IT support person or an IT tech person versus a CIO, take some time and call through that list and make sure that your messaging is very targeted so that they're receiving information that is relevant to them. It's just a courtesy thing. And then having appropriate messaging with clearly defined objectives, like what are you wanting to achieve, or what are you wanting the member to do, whether it's to scheduling a demo or attend a session that you're speaking at, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, to also think about, rather than emailing somebody once a day, every day for 2 weeks leading up or whatever, think about using multi-channel marketing approaches or strategies. So leverage social media, leverage email, obviously, maybe even consider doing a direct mail piece, which is kind of old school, but new school, baby, if you can shake it up a little bit in your approach. And so just really digital advertising, et cetera. Just so really think about and be mindful about your approach when it comes to messaging. And, our goal in sharing this with you is to help grow the opt-ins so that you can also grow your marketing channel and within ILTA. And so that's all I had to say. So, Dean, do you have any other thoughts or helpful hints or tips in this area too?
Yeah, thanks for the shout out, Amy. I just put a couple of things in the chat, and I think that the whole thing is know your audience. Be diligent in identifying the persona that you're reaching out to, just like you said, in terms of the relevancy aspect of it all, to make sure that you're culling it out and you're not blasting everything out there. The other thing also is nothing turns off a customer more than when they receive a cold call email, like with the, hey, you might be interested in our product, which is that I'm already a customer. That is a big trigger out there. And also know where a customer is if you want extra bonus points in their journey. If they're a new customer, send them a targeted message around that. If they've been a customer who's onboarding, that's a different message as well. And then a customer that's been on for a while, so that, again, you're being very targeted so that they're engaging in the communication. It's not a checkbox to get messaging out there.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any other thing they want to add or questions? I didn't see anything else in the chat.
One thing I'll add to what Dean said, because some of you know that I was a business partner exhibiting at ILTACON once upon a time, is if you have someone in the journey who's close to a decision or they're about to start on an implementation, pair them up with one of your existing customers. They might not know those people, and it's going to be a connection that they're going to value. They're going to get straight information. You don't have to be in the middle of it, but you can say, hey, this firm over here just finished an implementation. You're starting in 2 weeks. How about if I connect you up? Maybe they can help you. This is a real value add. So consider doing that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, anybody? All right. Okay, during ILTACON, best practices and ideas. So Gina, I've been talking a lot. I'll let you start out on this one.
Sure, absolutely. Well, one thing that we want to draw your attention to is to invite you to a business partner welcome, orientation, appreciation. There's lots of adjectives we're putting on it, but we would love for you to be there Monday at 4 o'clock. And more information will be shared about that as we get closer. But please, please put that on your calendar now so that you can protect that time. And feel free to pass that along to your colleagues that will be there as well. And then on the next slide, Sherry, we'll start unpacking a little bit about ideas and best practices and things like that that really are relevant to during the actual conference. We've talked a little bit about meetings before when we were talking about some KPIs and targets and things like that. The beautiful thing about ILTACON is it is your opportunity. It's all of our opportunity to meet face to face, which we have a whole nother level of appreciation for, right? Post pandemic, that are all in one place, if you will. So take advantage of that. However, if you try to schedule those meetings on Friday or the week of, you're going to get more disappointing responses, if responses at all, than if you start 30 days out. Okay. So just definitely put that kind of in your timeline of making sure that you're starting early. We talked earlier, but I want to just reinforce it here as well. Make sure that you're scouring that schedule to attend sessions, not only that your thought leaders are presenting, but also your customers and prospects. And I would say at a minimum, if you don't get to any other sessions, which would be unfortunate if this is the case, but at a minimum, attend the keynotes. Almost everyone within the conference is talking about the keynotes, right? So you talk about how do I connect with someone in the exhibit hall later? Ask them a question about the keynote, right? So that's a fantastic, but you can't do that or have that conversation if you don't attend the keynote. So make sure that you're attending those. I would also really encourage you all to take advantage of all the networking opportunities that are out there. ILTA plans a lot of them. This is where we take a little bit of the divide and conquer type approach, where we try to make sure that we have representation at all of the networking opportunities. Also, make sure that you plan for more booth coverage during breaks, because that's obviously when more people will be in there. It sounds very elementary, but I'm always a little amazed when I look around and someone has one person in the booth because everyone else has been in sessions and they're like, they can't even possibly connect with everyone, right? And the main thing is think about, as you look at the schedule, where are the members going to be? And that's where you want to be. Don't just hang out in the booth all day and not get out and network and things like that. Another thing that I would mention that I think is really critical is having daily huddles of some sort with your team, right? Make sure that they're aware of whatever scheduling changes has happened, whatever coverage that you need. If you need some, coverage for meetings that have moved, that type of thing, those daily huddles can be really instrumental. They also can be a real source of encouragement for your team. ILTACON is an exhausting week. It's an energizing and really fun week, but it's exhausting too. So if you have an opportunity to really build in and encourage your team, those daily huddles are great opportunities to do that. The Dawn mentioned really about prepping your entire team on the strategy. That is where those are words of wisdom, right? Make sure that your on the ground team really knows what are the key messages, what is the key focus. If you're a company like Traveling Coaches where you have so many offerings, we can't talk about every single offering, right? So what's our key focus for ILTACON, and just making sure that everyone's really aware of that. And then also, I can't overlook the importance of talking with your team and frankly, modeling for your team rest and well-being, Okay. Those are super important things. Drinking lots of water, staying really hydrated. Good shoes is another great example that Dawn placed in there. Multiple pair of good shoes. One pair of good shoes is not good on day 3, right? Because your feet needs the change. So, and not new shoes. That's another great one. So definitely super important there. The other part that I would touch on is around safety. Safety not only for your team, but safety for all conference attendees. One of the things that we talk about a lot in our pre-planning, we call them pre-ILTACON meetings internally, is around safety. And we've been doing this for years, and yet there's even a heightened awareness of it this year. And frankly, I love that, right? I don't love the reasons why it's a heightened awareness, but I do love the fact that it's a heightened awareness. And I talked to our team about the reality is from the time you arrive at the airport until the time you get back to your home at the end of ILTACON, you are representing our brand. And everything you do and say is either positively reinforcing that brand or it's negatively reinforcing that brand and your own personal brand, right? Which is equally important to the company brand. So we talk about things like buddy system, and you may go, oh my gosh, we're not in middle school. Sometimes it feels like that a little bit at ILTACON, right? With behaviors and choices that are made, right? Like we have to have a buddy system, looking out for each other, not only colleagues, but also looking out for clients. I can't tell you how many clients we've rescued from awkward or, decisions that could have gone wrong, right? So really keeping a watchful eye for others and implementing that buddy system. We call it the no man or woman is left alone, right? In the evenings, etc. So really just think about that. We also talk about very openly about consumption, right? Of hydration is super important. I talk to my team about you don't have to feel the pressure to consume alcohol at ILTACON, right? There's nothing wrong with walking around with a club soda and lime. No one necessarily knows what you're drinking, or with a bottle of water, whatever that looks like. You don't have to consume alcohol, but if you choose to consume alcohol, be mindful of it. And it's super easy to lose track, right? When you're bouncing from one event to another. So making sure that you're rotating water, know your limit. And my mantra is stop before your limit, because at ILTACON, you're tired. You're probably not as hydrated as you need to be, that kind of thing. And so it impacts us a bit different. So I could go on and on about safety, but it's super important, and just really being intentional around well-being, and really intentional around connecting with customers, connecting with prospects, being where the members are. I've covered a lot of ground, so let me pause and give you guys an opportunity to ask any clarifying questions, or also throw out, I see lots of really great things in the chat, but feel free to throw out other ideas or questions that you might have.
One item we haven't talked about that's during ILTACON and some of the things you can do. We haven't really talked about the buddy system for ILTACON. You talked
I
about
love
it,
that.
within your organization.
Mhm.
So ILTA itself runs a buddy system at ILTACON for people who are first timers. Can you imagine a better way to make a friend for life than to be a buddy to someone who's at ILTACON for the first time? And business partners can participate both as buddies and as people who need a buddy. So we are actively looking for buddies, and so please consider doing that. It's actually not a heavy lift. Um, and I know Emily and Dawn are going back and forth about code of conduct, and it's not unusual for our business partners to have their own code of conduct. We have seen in other events, some of the sponsorship agreements actually require some kind of code of conduct. We'll certainly be talking about that next year. You will probably hear from Marla Crawford or the people who are involved in Splash That's something that some business partners are subscribing to. We don't require it, but should you wish to do so, by all means do, and welcome to display that logo. But the important thing here is that people understand that this is a business event. It's
Mhm.
meant to be fun. And what I used to say to my colleagues when I was at a law firm is, if there's any behavior you're engaging in and you would be embarrassed if the managing partner ran into you in the lobby of the hotel, then don't do it. Um, we want to have a blast. We want to be professional. You keep those two things in mind, and you're going to find the right course, believe me.
Love that.
Thank you, Joy. Phil, I think you wanted to add something to this slide.
I did actually. Yeah.
Great.
Having been to ILTACON and all its incarnations going back prehistoric times, and the comments that we heard about more members opting out for communication purposes. All of us on the business partner side have heard the mantras forever about always be selling, always be closing. And while we have our strategies and we have our messages that we want to get across, sometimes that can be a little bit too much for the member. If we just walk right up to them, we start talking a little bit, and then suddenly we're into the message and we're saying, hey, let me tell you what we do. That turns them off. So I would suggest that you approach it more from a conversational, get to know you kind of a thing. The message can always come across. They're always going to ask, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? That's going to come out. But it's just really important, I think, to start a little bit softer with this particular group, with the members, because as we know, they're getting hammered. Every one of us is going to try to talk to every one of them. So they're getting, covered up. So a little bit softer approach oftentimes works a little bit better in the beginning. That's my main thought.
I
All
would
right, thank you.
also remind you that, I always hear a lot of questions about how many buyers are going to be there. And there will be a lot of people who can sign checks, but keep in mind, the people who sign checks are getting advice from the people elsewhere in their organization, are influencing those decisions. So every conversation can be an important one, not just the one with the CIO, but what you want to do is come across as what a good listener you are and how helpful you are. Because ultimately for them, that's what's going to make them look good. If you're listening to what they want and then giving them what they need, you're always going to be successful.
Just to add to that, Joy, I am not sure when you look at our registration list, from a business partner perspective, and from those of you who don't know, I used to also be a business partner. I'm not sure that there's anyone on that list that I don't think is a valuable individual to build a relationship with. Because if you've ever noticed, we have people that move across our industry, whether from a firm, going from a firm to another business partner and back again. They move all over the place. So making a relationship with that person stand beside of you, no matter who they are working for today, could change tomorrow. And these are relationships that you can build for a lifetime. So I know that sometimes when I walk through and I'm talking to people in the exhibit hall, people will be really friendly to me until they see I'm with ILTA, and then they'll just ignore me and go on. And that's okay. But people ask me questions too, right? Well, who do you know that does X, Y, and Z? And there's always a few business partners that always stand out. And when they ask, I do say I can't speak for what they do, obviously, because we don't use their services, but these are some people I know you can talk to. So any of those relationships while you're there are very valuable.
Excellent. Okay, so should we move on to the after? Okay, best practices and ideas for after. So following up after ILTACON is very important, and you obviously want to make sure that your investment is paying off. And there are, different avenues you can take. You can coach your team and leads and come up with that. Your strategic plan should include communications after as well. So Gina, do you have other tips and tactics you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I would really encourage you all to keep the message going. A lot of times we put so much focus into the communication and social and things like that, all leading up till ILTACON. And then for some organizations, it just stops, right? And it may not pick up until close to the holidays. Make sure that you are building out your communications and your social plan to go really year round, but definitely don't let it just completely fizzle, at the end of ILTACON. The other thing that I would really encourage you to put on your checklist and your calendars even now is what we call an ILTACON team debrief. And that is intentionally getting feedback from those that were there on what worked really well, what could we do to improve in future years, and that we could be just your organization. It could be feedback that ILTA would really benefit from, because remember that the BPC communications team is going to send you the ILTACON follow-up survey about a week after conference. So, for example, I don't fill out that survey until I've had my team debrief, because that's where I get a lot of really, really valuable information. Also, even giving your team an area where they can jot down notes for feedback throughout the conference is really helpful. We use OneNote for that, where people can just drop in like, this was great. Oh, this was kind of clunky, or, whatever that looks like. But I think getting their feedback is super helpful. And then we take all of that information, we collectively, BPC and also ILTA staff, and look at that feedback and say, what are the things that we can do to improve ILTACON the following year, right? It's also great information as we repeat sites. So for example, we go back and look at our debrief summaries from when we were at Gaylord Nashville, so that we can remember all the little things about the property that we need to remember. So that's definitely a best practice. There's some things on here, as far as your CRMs and follow-up messaging. And I agree with Amy of just be respectful there of, if you start peppering the ILTA community with messages on Friday or Monday, guess what? Probably not going to get a great response. And they're probably going to roll their eyes when they see it, because they're either traveling back or just catching up, right? So back, just, be respectful of, and just aware, right, of when are you most likely to get the best response, and thinking through that. So what other feedback would you all have, or questions for us?
Gina, I would like to mention, all of our business partners will be getting a note from me a little closer to conference, inviting them to attend some focus groups while we're there, to take down some ideas, to give you an opportunity to share some insights so that we can plan for better future ILTACONs. So I do want to bring that up so that you can look for that and join me.
That is another fantastic example of how ILTA listens, right? We gather the feedback from our teams, and then we share it back with the ILTA team, and they take those things into consideration. And we've seen changes year after year, whether if it's exhibit hall hours, et cetera. There's definitely areas where ILTA has taken that feedback and made changes that they can. I strongly agree with Patty Robertson's recommendation of ordering the padding in addition to the carpet. That is a 101. That is definitely a best practice. Otherwise, your team's going to be hanging out at other business partners' booths that have the padding. So you definitely want to do that. What other questions do you all have? I know we're coming up at the end of our time, but I want to make sure your questions are answered.
One other focus group, set of focus groups we're going to be doing at ILTACON, are for specifically our young professionals, which we're defining as anyone under 40. Now, given that I'm about to turn 65, I'm defining young as anything under 65, but for purposes of this effort, it'll be under 40. And many times our younger business partners seem hesitant to participate in these kinds of conversations. They feel like they're not running marketing, maybe they don't have anything to contribute. They're not setting strategy, maybe they don't have anything to contribute. Believe me, they do. We're trying to understand what our next generation of leaders in the membership and the business partner community are looking for in terms of programming, how to get together, how the kinds of activities that they're interested in may be different from my generation. So when those announcements go out, please share them. If you have members of your team who are in that younger demographic who will be at ILTACON and you think would have important opinions to share, please encourage them to sign up for the focus groups. We would really appreciate it.
I do want to mention, Gina, also last year, well, it was this year, we were at Legal Week and I was talking to someone who came by the booth to chat about ILTACON and a concern that they had from something we had not done. And I shared with him, we valued his input. We actually instituted it in 23 and he completely missed it. And so I do want to encourage people to watch those videos, because when we change ticket types, when we change things that are available to you guys, we put those in those videos and we try to communicate it as much as we can. We do realize people consume information differently, but it changes every year. It is not the same from year to year. And we always try to make it better for you guys.
A really, really good point. Dawn and her team do an amazing job with communications. So, and I know sometimes it can be a lot, but in reality, for all of us, for many of us, I should say, it's our largest single marketing and sales expenditure of the year. So we want a lot of information, right? Of how do we leverage it? How do we get the most out of it? And how do we just be in the know on what's changing? So really encourage you guys to read those communications, watch the videos, attend the webinars that are coming up. They will be worth your while. Our team gets something out of every single one of them, and we've been doing this way more years than I want to admit to. So, all right, Sherry, Amy, any
Yes, so here is the full listing of the Business Partner Committee representatives. And so if you have additional questions or want guidance or brainstorming, whatever, you can link up with your respective business partner level, sponsorship level representative, or anybody on this list. Really, we've been working together for a good number of years. We're a solid team and we are here to help you just make the most out of your sponsorship and your relationships with ILTA. And I think that's it. All right. I love it when we're on time. There was a question about what lead gen app or lead capture app, and that was answered. Thank you, Dawn. That's in the chat as well. And we are going to be sending out a copy of this recording, posting it up actually in the BPC e-group, and then we're going to have an attachment in there too with some guidelines and helpful tips for success. And I think that's it, right? The recording, the handout. Yeah. So thank you, everybody.
Sure. Amy and Gina, I just want to thank you both for being our hosts today. Thank you so much to Dawn and Tyler and also Courtney, who organized this for us all. Really appreciate all your contributions to bring this to bear. So again, everyone have a great rest of your week, planning to beat those deadlines.
Yes, love it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.